kind of waiting for them to do that. So right now our view is you're looking west. That's Locust right in front of us, downtown Des Moines behind us. So I would say maybe a crowd of a couple hundred people. This is where this protest started earlier tonight. This was not a scheduled protest. The intent, according to the people we talked to earlier, was that this protest was going to be peaceful, and for the most part it was. It got out of hand when they marched from the State House, I would say maybe around 8:30, down Court Avenue, and then they ended up at the Polk County Courthouse, which is on the other side of the river. Then they broke some windows, they spray painted the building. That's when that got out of hand. And then they decided to bring in more officers in riot gear. They fired tear gas. The group actually fairly quickly ran away. Once they ran away, things cleared up at that area near the Polk County Courthouse, and we showed you some video of that group leaving, and we showed you video of the damaged windows at the courthouse that they're remodeling. Then a lot of those people turned around, they assembled again, they walked back to the State House where this all started. They got agitated. There were more tear gas fired when they got to the Finkbein Road, which is that main road just to the west of the main State House building here. They ended up here, and here we go again. This is the third time that the bullhorn is being used to tell the people to leave. So they're warning people that they will be arrested, once again, if they don't leave. But I got to tell you, there are way more protesters than there are State Patrol and Des Moines police officers here, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. At this point, I would say most people are just chanting, they're yelling, they're holding signs. Earlier, they were firing some commercial-sized fireworks out of the crowd and into some of the police officers that were standing here. We were right there when those were fired. They were throwing some rocks. But I think for the most part, though, they have not been violent. There were the windows broken at the State House. We've not seen any injuries. We've not seen any arrests so far, because there are some people in the crowd that are trying to temper the group that's here that are a little more violent by yelling at them, saying, we want peace. We don't want this to be, a violent protest. We want to get a message across. We don't want anybody to get hurt. But of course, then there's a clash between those two groups, and there's an inevitable clash between the violent folks and the police that are here. Okay, we're getting the final warning now from the State Patrol that they have to disperse. So this is the fourth warning, and they're saying this is the final warning. So let's just watch and see what happens. The idea with these people would turn around, hopefully, and walk away. And I do see some people on the sides of the crowd walk away. But the front line, which I'm not sure you can see here, they're not moving. They're holding up their signs. They continue to chant. And right now the standoff continues, but it's just a little more tense because the groups are now so close. And the proximity is what is a worry, I think, or a concern.
Sure, and Todd, you do such an amazing job of giving this all perspective. I just wanted to add for our viewers at home, obviously the second night of protests here in Des Moines, all of this sparked by the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis earlier this week. Video surfaced of Floyd dying due to a police officer, what appeared to be a police officer with his knee on his neck for several minutes. It's video that is hard to watch and has sparked a lot of protests, and not only that, it sparked the arrest of that officer, many calling for the arrests of the few officers who were there with him, standing by and watching. Tonight we have gone and taken several live pictures across the country, protests really across the world, but especially in places like Los Angeles, Chicago. We took video in Seattle, which showed several cars on fire in the middle of downtown Seattle, large buildings in Los Angeles on fire, and of course here in Des Moines for the second night in a row, damage to buildings downtown, much more so last night. But tonight, a fairly large crowd gathered at the Capitol, as Todd mentioned. We've had team coverage on this. We've had senior reporter Todd Magel following all the action. We've had KCCI's Bo Bowman in the midst of these protests these past 2 nights, as well as KCCI's Kayla James, all of whom have just done a fantastic job describing the situation, putting themselves in harm's way just so that we all can see what's going on. And as you can see, we have several officers and state troopers talking right now. Todd mentioned and let us hear firsthand 4 warnings from law enforcement. We're going to toss it back to Todd. Todd, 4 warnings from law enforcement, including a final warning. What are you seeing right now?
Yeah, Max. So in the last 20 minutes, they've used a bullhorn, the Iowa State Patrol, and they've yelled that they are violating unlawful assembly. That's state law now that they've decided that this protest has gone on long enough. And so they've made 3 announcements, and then the 4th was saying we're going to arrest people if they don't leave. And so a few people have left, but for the most part, they're just standing there yelling. And so I'm not sure what the next step's going to be, because hang on just a second. Somebody trying to get in, and they're not supposed to be here. So so they're just now. Somebody just fired. Oh, now they're. Can you see?
Goodness.
People now are leaving.
There it is.
So there's your tear gas. There's your loud explosive devices, the little flashbangs they're throwing off. That did the trick. So people now are scattering. They're going down toward Finkbine. They're going west of where we are. Careful,
goodness.
There's one just went off.
Yeah, stay safe there, Todd.
So this is the tear gas. Yeah. So luckily the wind's blowing and not in our direction. So somebody's got a laser light that's pointing. I'm not sure what that is. And now it's hard to see, but if you just joined us, there were about 200 people standing just a few feet away from us and the police. Those people are gone. It is over. You can't see them. They can't see us. Of course, most of the officers you can see, they have gas masks on, so they can stay here. But it is, that worked really well.
Wow.
That got them out immediately.
That's quite the
There's
scene.
your end game right there. That's what we were wondering about. What are they going to do? Yeah.
That's quite the scene. We
So
just saw
now
one of
you're
those
looking
troopers.
live, basically.
Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, so they're picking up some of those canisters that they threw, and that's what they've been using today, and that's what they were using last night. That kind of thing it doesn't hurt anybody. It irritates eyes, but it does get people's attention. And clearly, now the trouble is, I don't know if you can see just beyond this sort of open area here, there are still some people down there. So I'm not just sure this is going to convince them to go all the way or whether they'll still stick around. But we'll stand by here and see what they do.
Okay, Todd, thank you. And if we can, we'd like to check in with KCCI's Bo Bowman now, if Bo's available. Bo, can you hear us?
Yeah, Max. We just had to backpedal about 100 yards.
I figured as much. That's why we wanted to check in with you, Bo. Bo, how was it on your end? It seems like a lot of canisters were thrown there, and there's a lot of movement. What's going on?
Yeah, Max, as soon as that first canister was thrown, everyone took off on a dead sprint away from the Capitol. And so did we. We gave ourselves about a 50-yard buffer zone and then some, so that we would not get any of that. But you see, that first wave of gas that they threw into the crowd's just going to gather again. They're still on the top of those steps. We're farther back than we were before. You can still see some of the gas lingering in the air. They're moving back now.
So, Bo, it looks like you're saying they're
going to continue to move backwards. We're going to move backwards too. Yep. Ooh, another thing was just thrown from the protesters. Yeah, protesters are throwing things now. You can see that strobe light there. I'm not sure what that was. But yeah, we're about 150 yards now farther back than we were when we last talked to you, Max. And they're running again. they're running again. We're gonna move back here. We're coming up on a tree back here, Robbie. This is photojournalist Robbie Rissman with the shot. He's been great all night. I've got his back. I'm holding on to his the back of his jacket, kind of yanking him in each and every direction, making sure he doesn't run into anything. But yeah, a lot of these protesters have moved way back.
Yeah, but it looks like somebody has a laser pointer in that crowd. Somebody got their hands on a laser pointer and is using it.
Yeah, I haven't been able to figure out where it's coming from, but I've seen it a couple times.
But is anybody leaving, or is everybody pretty much?
Everyone's. No. They retreated for a little bit, and now it actually looks like they're moving back up, or at least just gathering on that street there, not that driveway to the Capitol, but the other street. I'm not sure what street that is at the moment.
Sure.
But we're going to take a few steps closer here. And again, we're remaining at a safe distance. We want to stay as safe as possible, but still bring you this story. And those protesters are just it looks like the front line is on top of the steps right there, about a tier below where they were before the tear gas was thrown into the crowd. And you can see they're not slowing down. There's some that are going back up there now.
Bo, it looks like the front line of defense there of state
this could go
and police are coming toward the people. They are advancing closer to the protesters now.
Yep.
Now, people at home, one thing you need to understand, these people were given 4 warnings, and on that 4th warning, they were told this is a final warning. Each time, look at that, there is a stampede. Bo, stay safe. There is just a stampede of people now.
Yep, absolutely, Max.
And
there was more gas just thrown.
Each one of those warnings, and Bo, I don't know if you could hear it from where you are, but Todd allowed us to listen to it. Each one of those warnings, as he pointed out, included the fact that they would be arrested if they did not disperse. So, and they are really moving now. Sergeant Paul Parizek mentioned to...
Yep, and oh, okay.
Sergeant Paul Parizek mentioned to Todd earlier that they would wait it out, but it looks like they are really dispersing it. Bo, what are you seeing? Go ahead.
Throwing fireworks. Yeah, the protesters are throwing more of those fireworks, and there's some type of explosion there. If this ends up being anything, if the police approach this as they did last night, they're going to start, oh my gosh, we're going to back way up. Robbie, all right, we're just going to turn. We're going to turn and back way up to a safe distance. Yep. We'll check in with you in a little bit.
Okay, hey, we're gonna check in with senior reporter Todd Magel now. Todd, unbelievable since we last spoke to you. A lot has happened. What are you seeing from your end?
Yeah, Robbie, you're gonna have to forgive me because we're now in the middle of the tear gas, so my eyes are watering and it's hard to talk. But we moved down to where the line of the riot police were, and you can see they've moved way down the steps. They've continued to fire. They've continued to fire their tear gas and flash grenades or flash bombs, and now that's taken all those protesters all the way down to Finkbein, excuse me, where the main road goes in here in front of the State House. So they're basically advancing west toward downtown, and the crowd, because the crowd came back after they fired that first round of tear gas, and now that whole line has just moved down the steps slowly, firing more. You're hearing, I don't know if you can hear it from our standpoint, but they're yelling at the crowd again, and the crowd is yelling at the police officers, I should say. Well, there's a lot of tear gas here, so forgive me. And so now the crowd, if you can see, is just at the very bottom of the State House area here on Finkbein, where there's, again, an open area. But a lot of people I can see from where I'm standing, if you look west, they're leaving. So they're walking down that concourse toward Locust, and I can see people walking on the street on Locust down toward downtown. So there's still a group. It's a much smaller group that's here now, but they're very angry, and they don't like to be told what to do, and clearly they're upset by the show of force here, but that was the one thing they were warned about 4 times to leave. They didn't leave. Do you want to go down any farther? So we're going to walk a little bit west here down the steps. See if we can get a little closer. I can breathe a little bit easier now. So,
And Todd, you just let us know if you need a
you
break.
can see there's a lot of debris. Yeah, I think I'm okay. So you can see some of the canisters. Man, oh, there is a lot of tear gas down here. The canisters are in the middle of the crowd. You can see some glass bottles. And now we're going down by the fountain in front of the State House here, and you can see there's a large crowd. There's far fewer people, I would say, in this crowd, but again, if you can look way down, you could see that people are leaving to the west of us here, but people are still yelling, and they've stopped firing now, so they basically have a new sort of perimeter that's much farther in front of the State House, and I think we've been telling you all night that their goal was to protect the State House from vandalism, and that's what happened at the Polk County Courthouse, which is just on the other side of the river from where we are, pardon me. So now there's more tear gas. You can see that to the right, and the winds are changing, and that's why some of it's blowing back at us. Most of it, though, is blowing at the protesters. So we're continuing to watch, and we'll see if they advance even more. It's kind of like a battle here. They're just advancing. The crowd goes back, advance a little bit more, and of course the goal is to just get them to go home, because at this point, nobody's really solving anything. So, Max, I'm going to send it back to you here.
Sure, Todd. Thank you so much.